Welcome to episode 2 of Becoming You. In this episode, I have got Aman Kaur with me, and we will be delving more into what becoming you means for Aman. And we'll simply be having a conversation. Welcome, Aman, to Becoming You podcast.
Thank you, Gursharan, for having me.
So, what does becoming you mean to you? When you hear this phrase, what comes up for you?
To me, it's quite an obvious one. So your authentic self, your true self, who you are before the labels are thrown at you, mom, wife, daughter, person who works in HR, whatever, is kind of associated with who you become over time. So your core values, the things that kind of make you up as a person, and being true to them rather than putting on a performance of someone that you're trying to be, but you truly are not.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, lawyers have a lawyer personality. I feel sometimes people mold into that personality over time because they feel their job role is who they are. And so they try and become like that rather than being true to who they really are themselves. They kind of mold into this strange personality that you see with certain professions or that kind of thing. So for me, becoming you is who you really are, your true authentic self.
And how would you say you can hold on to that while, carrying on your day job or performing the role, so to speak? That might be your profession. So you gave
Yeah.
lawyer as the example in this scenario. So how
Hmm.
can a lawyer, female lawyer, remain authentic to herself yet carry on performing in her role and professional capacity?
I think it's that constant grounding. So something that brings you back to yourself every day. That could be through as Gus 6, it could be through doing Nam Simran, meditation of some kind, where you're blurring out the noise kind of what's expected of you and that kind of thing, and what you're required to perform. People are a good reminder. Your family, the people around you, often see when you're beginning to change and become something that you're not,
Mm-hmm.
compared to who they knew you as before, especially your parents, probably the best example. um Doing some kind of journaling to kind of separate your experience. So trying to figure out what you went through, whether it was something that was aligned with your values, or whether you spot that actually this is not something that aligns with me and I need to move away with from XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first things that come to my mind.
Okay, yeah. It's about kind of, holding on to and remaining true to yourself, like you said, right? And in the process of kind of, achieving high performing roles and, achieving your career successes, not losing yourself and losing your essence, really, isn't it? Is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really helpful. Thank you. So, how do you find yourself where you are in your career right now? And you're a mom of two. So, have you ever asked yourself or wondered to yourself, who am I becoming?
um Absolutely, probably daily. But then you don't have time to ponder on it for too long because there's someone that needs you for something. I am quite self-aware as a person, I'd say.
Mhm.
For both my merits and my demerits, for things that I feel I've gone wrong in the day, or I should have done better, or spoken a bit better to the kids, or whatever it might be. I'm quite self-aware when it comes to things like that. But I would say that the season of life that I'm in, as is probably the story for most moms of young children, is in the season of life you don't really find you focus on yourself that much. And absolutely the label of mom is like the top most priority at the moment, for two children and a five. Think with having said that though, I do try to do my best in being mom. So that's the season of life I'm in. I'm not career focused right now. I will be, but right now where I am, it's time to be mom. So I try my utmost best to reflect on how I am as a mom, how I can grow, how I can be better, the things I do well, the things I can learn from, other people I can learn from. Um, and I would say I'm probably more aligned to who I am in daily life and how I show up for my kids and how I allow others to show up for me, and for my kids, and how they might influence my children as well.
Hmm.
So absolutely, I think being a mom makes you reflect daily on who you're becoming, and also who your children will become over time. You start to see little traits in them, you start to see little personalities coming out, and you start to feel more mindful of who the people are around you that are influencing your children, or what they're watching, or what they're exposed to. So, for example, I don't like my children being in the company of people who vocally say that girls are the inferior gender. So that is becoming more solidified in me to make sure that I become strong for my children, to say these people won't be part of our life because they're not good for my kids, kind of thing. So, yeah, career wise, becoming someone in a career is not what I'm doing right now, but being mom at the moment is my main focus, and trying to do that to the best of my ability is first and foremost for me right now. Hope that answers the
Absolutely. And
question.
I think, I know, absolutely. I think, and that's what, having children kind of evokes in us, right? That reflective mode of, you know, what's going on around us, what's going on inside us, and what's showing up for us as well as what's happening in our children's lives. So we do become more, that's definitely my experience as well. We do become more observant of who's having an impact and what kind of impact the surroundings are having, what environments we are taking our children into or we find ourselves in that may no longer be suitable or appropriate, depending on our children's ages and their comprehension levels, or what those environments might evoke in us sometimes as well.
Hmm.
The current sort of, climate, for example, people are having all sorts of conversations around racism and other things, associated factors. So naturally, parents of, children with young ages will naturally kind of, become even more alert, more conscious
Mm.
of, what kind of conversations are taking place around us. What are people saying, that people that we think we know?
Yeah.
Uh, and sometimes, people outgrow our season of life as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like having children is like having a mirror held up to you constantly.
Mm,
Like you are having daily to be like checking yourself and be like, okay, how do I respond to this to make sure that this example that I set for my child
mm,
is the correct one. So, for example, I went to my child's nursery the other day, and one of the children there literally saw me. She was like, "What's that on your head?" And I was like, "Oh, this is my crown." And like my daughter was watching, and I could see she was just staring at me like, "Oh my god, what's mom gonna say?" And I was like, "Oh, this is my crown." And she was like, "A crown?" She was like, "But you're not a princess." And I was like, "Well, I am." And I was like, you don't know, but I
mm,
am." And then I said, "I always have to keep my hair covered," and I had to be very conscious about the words I was using and how I was coming across, and that
mm,
I didn't look like, oh, I wanted to just kind of crawl up in a ball and just leave the room. I had to portray confidence and
mm,
oh, like I know what I'm talking about, kind of thing, for my daughter. And she was literally just like, what is mom saying, kind of thing. And then afterwards, she was so like, Mom, you're a princess. Like she was just in awe. And I just feel like daily that happens. And even though that's naturally not who I am, like I had to put on the confidence and that kind of thing. I really had to step up in that moment and be like, okay, it's make or break. I have to say something right. Otherwise,
mm.
it's gonna set that for my child. And I need to make sure that I'm saying things that she can align with. So it's that daily mirror of being like, who are you becoming? Because your kids are going to be like that. Your kids are going to become like that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something there, even though that's not naturally me, but you had to find that, lean into that inner confidence to You
Yeah.
know, kind of set that bar high and also set that example for your daughter who was watching and, you know, nearby. But equally, does that mean that actually, you are actually really confident?
See,
So,
I'm very good at pretending to be in the right settings. I'm a proper introvert at home, but when it comes to leading meetings, doing anything of that kind of sort, people afterwards always say to me like, "Oh man, you did that really well," and I'm just like, "What?" Like, I just literally just made up whatever came to me at that time. But when it
mhm,
comes to kids, I feel like you don't want them to be exactly like you. You want them to be the version of themselves to the best of their ability. You want to give them confidence. Even if you don't have that yourself, you want them to have that. I don't want my child to be timid and walk around being scared of showing her gears or her the star, and having an identity crisis, which is so difficult for girls right now in today's day and age and stuff. So I was just like, how do I play this so that my child walks away from this being like, my mom is like so cool, like she's a
of
princess or
course.
whatever. And for her to start building on that notion, on that narrative and that idea, Holly, with time as she grows up, she's going to start having more questions about her case and why she has to cover it, or why others don't, and that kind of thing. And so yeah, you do find that from somewhere because you want your kids to always be better than you. You want your kids to always do better than you. And where I would have liked that for me growing up, and I didn't get that. I'm trying my best to make that happen for my girls, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And you've touched on something so important there that sometimes in our culture and other cultures as well, children are seen as an extension of the parents. So they
Yeah.
are mini me's. We all refer to them as mini me's as well, or mini, whatever. And actually, the expectation is that children fulfill the unfulfilled dreams of the parents or someone in the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, in our culture and societies, that has been the case and still is the case for many families today. So, actually, it's so important and critical to give them the space and honor them as sovereign, conscious beings. They are also souls having human experiences. They're not
Absolutely.
here to fulfill our unfulfilled dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Their destiny may be completely different to what our life has unfolded for us, right? So we can only create space for them to grow, to be nurtured, to fulfill their potential to the optimum levels. And when
Mm-hmm.
we recognize that, exactly everything you've described, when we recognize that and are aware of that, we can actually start honoring them as individuals. So we don't find that, kind of clash of how dare you speak to me like that or respond to me like that, but actually we
Mm.
give them the space to be the best version of themselves. Like you mentioned, you would have liked that for yourself as well growing up. Now you're trying
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. And I think it comes down to that what you said is really important there about creating space for who they are. Now,
Mm,
if my one of my children grow up to actually be quite timid and introverted and doesn't like public speaking or anything like that, that's also absolutely fine. But as a mom, I want to give her ample opportunity to kind of create that skill and to use it and grow with it. And if it doesn't come naturally to her, that's also absolutely fine. But I want to create the space for her to be able to work on it, use it, grow with it, learn how to publicly speak and how to stand up for herself and that kind of thing. But most importantly, if she isn't that way inclined, I have to give her the space to be who she is. So she might be
okay.
fantastic at doing something where she's in the background somewhere and she's absolutely killing it and she's not on a stage talking to 500 people or whatever, which is fine. But it's about giving her the space to work with that skill and see, is this something that I like doing? Is this something that, comes naturally to her or not? I mean, she's only 3.5, which is a lot of time to tell yet. But I just wanted to see that being modeled to her so that
Mm.
she could be like, oh, okay, this is how you respond and this is how you stand up for yourself, kind of thing.
And I'm sure she was absolutely proud of yourself.
And
That
her jaw was on the floor. She was like, what? Like, I didn't know mom was a princess. And I was like,
absolutely, absolutely. And that's again that kind of, conversation starter, right, with the child as well. So, just little bit of a segue. in your life, have you said yes to something? As most women do all the time. The yes comes out of our mouth before we even, kind of recognize and hear the inner voice of, no, don't say yes to this. So have you ever said yes to something, but you really wanted to say no in a
Coming
scenario
on this
or
podcast.
situation?
Coming on this podcast was like, what? Um, I think it's really strange, but there's been so many instances where I've said yes to something when I should have said no, that I can't pinpoint one specific example. Um,
So tell me about
it's
like
actually
that then. So let's unpick this one maybe then. So your instinct was to say no.
yeah, I'm not a speaker, I'm not a preacher, but I'm not someone who this comes to naturally. Like conversation off screen, offline, I can thrive in all day long. But when I know it's being like recorded, it's going to go out there to the world, and people will unpack it, and they'll be like, oh, what a weird thing to say, or whatever. I get quite self-conscious about things like that, but um sometimes I feel like, who am I to like go on this
Hmm.
podcast? Like
Who
there
am
must be
I?
so many other people that could do it. Again, it comes down to that confidence thing, which I don't believe I truly have. A lot of imposter syndrome creeps up, but there were so many, Sharon, I cannot pinpoint a single one to you. I feel like in our culture, that is literally what we're taught to do.
Hmm.
Hana harmony, and just go with whatever someone else is saying. You can't really have your own opinion. And
Keep the
not that
peace.
that's what my parents have taught me, but it's the bigger picture, it's the bigger kind of cultural
Hmm.
thing. Keep the peace, don't rock the boat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but recent ones, I would say that I'm really trying hard to not just say yes when I want to say no, is things with the kids, things
Okay.
that involve the kids. So like time with the kids is really limited as it is. We're both working parents, and weekends are like quite precious now. So I really try and be careful about what I say yes to on a weekend, and if
Hmm.
the kids will benefit from that experience or not. And if it's just something that's just going to create chaos and just overwhelm them, and we're all just going to go home
Hmm.
crying. So with the kids, I'm really quite conscious about what I say yes to. When it comes to myself, it's a different story.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll pause there for a second. So it's beautiful to hear with the kids you've mentioned, very conscious. Would this experience benefit them, enhance their experience, or, the joy they might experience, or another emotion or feeling, etc., from that experience? But when it comes to yourself, it's not the same.
No.
So, if on that note, if someone was to ask you, or I'm asking you now, describe yourself, Aman. What does becoming you mean for you at this moment in time? Just in context of what you've just shared. So you can do it for the kids, but not for yourself. I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here.
I was gonna say. Um, so I'm the eldest of two, and that typical older daughter
Mm-hmm.
persona. It's me through and through. So the person who's just trying to keep everything together, the person who's trying to look after everybody at their own detriment most of the time, the person who had to grow up quicker than they would have liked, um, and very, very culturally aware of expectations
Mm-hmm.
of someone of my gender, of someone of like a Desi family, basically, like what's
Mm-hmm.
expected of a Desi curry these days. And that has definitely just been woven through me um, from a young age, from as far as I can remember, to be honest. Um, who am I as a person? Like, I could tell you things about me that would be values for me. So, like being fiercely loyal, that's something that I really feel I hold close as a core value.
Mm-hmm.
Having honesty and integrity is something that I really value as well. I feel like I have this kind of sixth sense for when people are lying to me, and I really hate it. I really, really hate being on the receiving end of someone who's just lying to your face, and it's just like how like you know it's disrespectful almost. So these are like the few things that I really don't compromise on. Like, even if it gets me into trouble at work or whatever, even if it's something that I really don't want to admit, or I will be really honest about things about me or work that I should have done or haven't done to a certain standard or whatever. Um, Accountability for things. And yeah, I would say that they're kind of my main core values. But when it comes to anything and everything else, I think I've let culture dictate that to me more than I should have.
Mm. So we are all on that journey to become ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Mm. And I've heard a lot of that, most of what you've just shared from so many Indian women and Punjabi women, because everyone's fit into that narrative and
Mm.
mold of what the expectations have been. Um, yeah, it's a lot to process, isn't it, at times? Because
It's scary because when you start thinking about it, then you're like, oh my God, like what? Like, you spend so much time in life or whatever trying to be this, the good daughter, the good daughter-in-law, or good wife, good sister, just everything. And then you just think, oh my God, who am I really in all this? And what are my needs and what are my um non-negotiables or whatever? Like, you really do lose that, especially like when you're holding so many titles and spinning so many plates. It's like, what do I let go of first to really try and start thinking about who I am as a person?
absolutely. And I think that precisely has been the rationale and my thinking behind starting Becoming You podcast, because everyone, almost everyone, is having these thoughts and reflections and kind of
Mm,
sitting with all of these feelings and thoughts and unprocessed emotions, etc., not knowing exactly what you said. What do you let go of? How do you let go of something? Because it's ingrained in us, and we've spent decades of our lives living that mold and living that persona, not knowing who we are anymore because we've become someone in our professional roles, in our personal lives. We've become parents or spouses, etc., etc., all the other relationships we've adopted, along the way,
yeah.
and not knowing who we are anymore. And
Yeah.
so it is about that kind of road back to becoming you. What does that look like? Let's embark on that journey together. So, just finally, what would the little girl in you be proud of the woman you have become today? What would she say to you?
She'd probably say you're doing pretty well for how much you've got on right now. Um, I don't give myself credit for anything. I am my own worst enemy when it comes to um giving myself a pat on the back or anything like that. I am my biggest critic. But I do think that little Aman would be proud of kind of where I'm at today in terms of um Sikhi, having a living in grist, having a husband, children, um, with in-laws, with parents, really trying to keep everyone involved still and maintaining all those relationships and everything. Um, but also like being able to stick to those core values that I spoke about, being fiercely loyal, having honesty and integrity and that kind of thing. And really that's what's got me so far in life, I would say, is being that person. Because if I tried to be somebody else, I think you can only put a facade on for so long. And like being approached for promotions at work and that kind of thing, I feel is only because I display those values of being honest and taking
Mhm.
accountability and um giving everything 110% no matter what I do. And if you want to ask my husband, you can, because he would back me on. I wish you would just give things 80% sometimes, because you just go like absolutely
Mm.
crazy about anything that I take on. It has to be to like the highest standard that I can possibly do. Which is why parenting is so hard, because it's like this is going to be like an 18 plus 30-year thing. I don't know how long this thing goes on for, but
Never,
like to give
never.
that 110% all the time is really, really difficult when you're working. You've got a house
Mm.
to look after, in-laws, parents, everything going on, and you're really trying to do parenting justice and your kids justice by being, we're not the ignorant generation anymore. We're more self-aware of how our parents spoke to us, the things that we went through, the experiences we had, and how that led to us being who we are today.
Mm.
And yeah, just that, giving it 110% is exhausting as well. So she'd be proud, but she'd probably say, can you just chill out a little bit? Like, you don't need
Take a
to
pause and
be
rest.
such a martyr about everything. Like, it's okay to lean on people
Mm.
and get that help, and tell people you're struggling as well sometimes in certain things, like not just parenting, other things, it's okay.
Speak to someone, right? Open up to
Yeah.
someone. Yeah. I think everything you've said there will resonate with a lot of our speakers, if not all of our speakers. Sorry, listeners, not speakers. Um, Everything you've said there will resonate with anyone listening to this podcast because, in essence, that is the story of every woman that you've described there. Trying to give everything 110% in our professional lives, personal lives, raising children, keeping our houses intact, and everything on top. Um, you know, Something has to give way, right? And most often, what we see happening is our health starts to give way.
Mm,
Our health starts to start whispering to us. And we'll do a whole episode or more on that specifically, because the body is trying to communicate, and we're sort of like, go, 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 go mode, because there is no time to scratch our heads or sit down or take a pause or take a break. So we're constantly on the go. And in that process, we are forgetting ourselves. So
mm,
I'm glad to hear that little Aman would say, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to
yeah,
make
but
time.
Big Almond would be like, no, we can't, we have too much to do. I
Again,
feel like, though, like what you've just said, is it almost describes midlife crisis as well.
mm,
When you go through so many years of not having space and it being go, 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 like there is no space, there's no time, there's no give in anything that you're doing right now. When you hit a certain age and the kids are a bit older, they're a bit more self-sufficient and that kind of thing, and you start looking introspectively at, oh my God, who have I become over these years? And that's when the midlife crisis then comes in. I feel like that's what you're describing now.
absolutely. And I think you know, it's only so long you can carry on like this. Um, and from my own experience, I've done 20 years of professional work and full-time work actually. Um, Never had a break, exactly what you said. And juggling everything, four children, professional roles, really high-performing roles, um, and juggled everything to the T, maximum 110% output all the time. And and then my body started whispering.
Mm,
So I'm speaking from experience when I say it's only so long you can carry on like this. There will
mm,
come a time, something in our lives, we will have an experience that will kind of awaken us a little bit to remind us, hold on, what are you doing? Where are you headed this way? How do you think you're going to carry on, in this
mm,
way for the rest of your life? So
yeah.
there comes a time where we are stirred from within and we are reminded to take a pause and take that sacred pause in our lives and actually just in ourselves. But we shall have that conversation separately. Thank you so much, Aman, for joining me today. We'll bring it to a close here now. Any final words for our listeners?
Um, no, not really, other than it's a lot. It's scary, but I think it's work that needs to be done.
Mm,
And like you said, if you don't do it yourself, somehow, some way, something will make you stop and do the work. So, yeah, I mean, it's been quite insightful speaking to you as well. So, thank you for having me
so
and
you're
giving me
glad
the
you said
opportunity to
yes?
speak. I'm glad overall, but I will take a breath after we're done.
Sure. Thank you so much for joining me. This
Okay.
is Journey of Becoming You. Thank you for listening.